Hello, I'm Dr. Ed Williamson of Westminster Presbyterian Church, and I'd like to give you a message today for the times that we are in. The scripture that I would like to share with you as we speak today and as we share today is from Galatians chapter 6, verse 9 in the New Testament. In this particular passage that Paul was sharing to the early Christians of the church in Galatia, he says, and I'm quoting from the King James Version of the Bible, "Be not weary in well-doing, for we shall reap if we faint not." Now, I know that language may be a little bit austere, so let me try to put it in modern day words. I think if Paul was speaking to us today, what he would be saying is this: don't get tired and give up when things get hard, because if we keep on going, we will eventually come to a place of success. And I think that's especially important to know as we face the challenges that we are facing in these days. You know, I want to tell you something about facing challenges, something that you may or may not know. I used to be a pretty good mountain climber. There was a period in my life when I spent quite a bit of time and energy and expense climbing mountains. Now, I live in West Texas, which is about as flat as a pancake. And so you may wonder, why would a person who lives in West Texas get interested in mountains and in mountain climbing? To be honest with you, I was born in the mountains of West Virginia, and I've always been intrigued by mountains. I love to go up on top of them because you can see so far and there's so much beauty to be seen. But when I was working in a church in Los Alamos, New Mexico a few years ago, I had a couple of guys that came into my church office one day. And they said, "We know that you sit here in your church office at your chair and you got all these books and notebooks and everything else around you, and you spend a lot of time in here. But we also know that when you were younger, you did a lot of camping and a lot of backpacking and things like that. Isn't it true?" And I said, "Yes, it is true." And they said, "Well, we would like to share with you a bit of our hobby, if that's okay with you, because we are mountain climbers. We are members of the Los Alamos Mountaineers. And the two of us have each climbed all of the 54 14,000-foot mountains in Colorado. And we think it would be good for you, and it just would be a great thing in general if we took you with us and taught you to do some mountain climbing if you'd like to do that kind of thing." And I said, "Great." So I got into the sport of mountain climbing. And there's quite a bit to learn when you do that. There's different skill sets and things that one must be prepared for. And so in the course of my mountain climbing career, I guess you'd say it, I climbed about half of those 54 14ers that were up there in Colorado. And it was a great experience. I also climbed some other mountains too along the way. But I learned something as I was doing it. Yes, to be honest with you, it takes a fair amount of courage sometimes to climb those mountains. It's tough, it's hard, it can be. But if you really want to do it, it's a wonderful feeling of accomplishment when you really succeed at that sort of thing. But one of the things that I learned pretty quickly in that endeavor was that you do not climb every mountain that you want to climb on the day that you want to climb it. You might go to the base camp, the trailhead, and then go on up to where you have your tent set up at the foot of the mountain that you're going to climb the next day. And then the next morning you'd get up and look at that mountain up above, and there would be ice and snow up there. And it would be covering the trail to such an extent that it would be hazardous, possibly even deadly dangerous if you went on up the trail. And so, in those situations, rather than saying go, we would say no. And we would simply go back and wait until a more opportune time, and then come back and climb the mountain when the conditions were right. Now, in this time in which we are right now, a lot of people want to go ahead with business as usual. Let's go on ahead. These problems that we're facing is not really that big of a deal. But I got to tell you, sometimes you got to look up at the mountain, and if it looks dangerous, if there are unknowns there, you say no. Sometimes it takes a lot of courage to climb a mountain, to say go. But from my experience, it also takes as much courage to say no. Let's hold back. Let's all take a breather, and let's wait this thing out until the conditions are better. Now, we all want to make progress. That's true. We want to go forward with our lives as normal. Sometimes we have to take a little detour. And yet, even so, it's no time to relax, especially as a Christian. We can still love people. We can still help people. We can still communicate with people, with our brothers and sisters, on the telephone or over the internet, things like that, and still keep them safe and keep ourselves safe too at this time. And so that's what we really need to do. This is a special time that we're in. There have been other times that have been kind of unusual for Christians, times when they were held back, and yet times when they had to persevere and hang in there and go forward when the time was right. I remember back in the early Christian days, the Christians were persecuted. They were persecuted by a Roman emperor named Domitian, and he wanted to kill all the Christians, just wipe it out and everything. But a man named John spoke to those early Christians and said, we are in a time of persecution, we are in a time of danger, but take heart, God is still with us. Be not weary in well-doing, for we shall reap if we faint not. Those Christians did what he said and waited, and then the danger eventually was gone. Christianity could move forward. I believe Jesus would say the same thing to us if he was here physically with us now. I think he would say, hold on to your faith. Keep your faith strong. The conditions are very unusual right now, but this is not the end of the story. Just be strong. This is a test of your faith, and you can pass the test if you persevere. Remember those mountains I was telling you about that I used to climb? Sometimes in climbing those things, it wasn't a whole lot of fun. I remember probably the mountain that I wanted to climb the most was the Grand Teton Mountain up in Wyoming. Beautiful mountain. Many of you have seen pictures of the Grand Teton. Maybe some of you have even climbed it. But I remember the day that I was going to climb it, I made it about halfway up the mountain, and suddenly I started to feel really bad. I hadn't had the right kind of breakfast or something that morning, and I was about to turn back. At least I felt like it anyway. And my guide turned to me. I said, maybe I should go back down. And my guide said to me, you know what? Right now, you're very close to the summit, to the very top. And if you turn back now, you'll have wasted all that you had. So try to hang in there. You can make it. It's not that far. And you know what? My guide was right. We made it to the top of the mountain, and what a glorious thing it was. But I had to tough it out. I had to wait. I had to go forward and remember to be not weary in well-doing, for we shall reap if we faint not. Don't get tired and give up when things get hard, because if we keep on going, we will come to a place of success, and God will be with you. God bless you.